Hello and welcome back. This is episode number 6, A Sunny Morning, a One Explain. The story is centered around two old people who meet at a park and trying to recall their romantic past. The man is Gonzalo and the woman is Laura. These two meet at a park. After a brief discussion or conversation, they realize that they are the lovers of the past. There was a little bit of a background to it. When Gonzalo reads out a poem from Camphor, 20 years pass, he returns. Both feel they were the lovers in the past. But they choose to pretend. They choose to pretend to hide their identities. Gonzalo tells Laura that he was Gonzalo's cousin. And she says that she heard about Laura's story through her friend. This is how they begin to pretend and they begin to continue their conversation. Gonzalo made a mention of a duel. Laura made a mention of a duel. Gonzalo made a mention of a sad love story they had. And what was the duel? What was the talk about? They were talking about Laura Laurent as the Silver Maiden and whose lover had a duel. They are talking about this. Precisely the duel. The gallant lover was my cousin. I was very fond, he said. Gonzalo hid his identity and he is talking about the sad love affair. But he is narrating this story on behalf of his cousin. Laura responds to it, point to the story as if she has seen it everything. She has seen it because it happened in her life. But now she is narrating it through the eyes of her friend who narrated everything to her. This is all done just to hide her identity, not to reveal that she was Laura who was sitting there beside Gonzalo. Yes, there was a duel. Oh yes, a cousin, she said. Laura has already realized that the person who is sitting by the side of her is none other than her lover in the past. But she asked him, "Oh, your cousin." She knew that he was lying. My friend told me in one of her letters the story of that affair, which was truly romantic. He, your cousin, passed by on horseback every morning down the rose path under her window and tossed up to her balcony a bouquet of flowers which she caught. This is a romantic affair. In reality, Gonzalo, when he was young, used to go through the rose garden and throw a bouquet to Laura. She could catch it there. And later in the afternoon, the gallant horseman would return by the same path and catch the bouquet of flowers. She would toss him. Am I right? Am I right? He asked. The story is matching now. What used to happen on his return, she used to throw the bouquet back to him. Yes, they wanted to marry her to a merchant whom she would not have. What happened? An element of surprise was revealed in this episode. But the surprise still remains. What separated Laura and Gonzalo in the past? Both of them don't know. Now, they come to know it. What happened in the past? They wanted to marry her to a merchant whom she would not have. In Laura's house, they arranged her marriage. and they wanted her to marry a merchant, but she did not like to. And one night, Gonzalo said, when my cousin waited under her window to hear her sing, this another person presented himself unexpectedly and insulted your cousin, isn't it? She had been the witness of it. There was a quarrel and later a duel. Yes, at sunrise on the beach, and the merchant was badly wounded. My cousin had to conceal himself for a few days and later to fly. What happened exactly? In a duel, a person who wanted to marry Laura had a duel with Gonzalo. Gonzalo wounded him. He was wounded by Gonzalo. So what happened? Thereafter, Gonzalo had to hide himself. You seem to know the story very well, she said. How did you know everything? And so do you. You also know it very well. I have explained that a friend repeated to me, as my cousin did to me, aside. As my cousin did to me, aside. ಮನಸ್ಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡ, this is a lot. What we call such people in colloquial language, tube light. This guy came to know now. Well, tell him. Why tell him? Laura realized Gonzalo, the person who is sitting beside her, is Gonzalo, her lover in the past, but she decides to hide the identity. So she says, why tell him? He does not suspect. He does not come to know. Gonzalo also thinks the same. Aside, she is entirely innocent. How she did not come to know that I am sitting beside her. But what happened? What separated them? They don't know, actually. Both cleverly want to know what happened thereafter, after they got separated. So Gonzalo, Laura asked, and was it you, by any chance, who advised your cousin to forget Laura? Was it you, by any chance, asked your cousin to forget Laura? Why? My cousin never forgot her. How do you account then for his conduct behavior? If Gonzalo did not forget Laura, then what is the meaning of his behavior? I will tell you what happened. Gonzalo clarifies that. The young man took refuge in my house, fearful of the consequences of the duel with a person highly regarded in that locality. From my home, he went to Seville. Then he came to Madrid. He wrote Laura many letters, some of them in verse, but undoubtedly they were intercepted by her parents, for she never answered at all. Gonzalo then, in despair, believing his love lost to him forever, joined the army, went to Africa, and there, in a trench, met a glorious death. Grasping the flag of Spain and whispering the name of his beloved, Laura. This is the story. This is a cooked up story by Gonzalo. What happened thereafter? After the duel, Gonzalo got separated. Gonzalo and Laura got separated. But what happened? They are meeting again now, after so many years, when they have become old, here in the park. But they don't know what happened between them. But look at the lie. Gonzalo cooked up a story. The young man, who's none other than Gonzalo himself, took refuge in his home because he is narrating the story in the name of his cousin. So he hid himself. He wrote many letters to Laura. Laura did not respond. He thought his love was lost forever. So he joined an army. And then he fought and then in a trench he met a glorious death. More interestingly, he held the flag of Spain, whispering the name of his beloved, Laura. When people die in a war, they would take the name of their country while they are dying, the name of their beloved while they are dying. Or so he took the name of his beloved, Laura. What is Laura's response to it? Laura knew it was an atrocious lie. She told to herself, what an atrocious lie, horrible lie. Gonzalo, I could not have killed myself more gloriously than this. But what is Laura's version? Laura asked him, you must have been prostrated by the calamity. You might be heartbroken. Yes, indeed, Senna. As if he were my brother, I presume. Though, on the contrary, that Laura in a short time was chasing butterflies in her garden, indifferent to regret. Gonzalo smartly trying to know from Laura now what happened thereafter to Laura. He threw these words, shot these words to her in order to provoke her to tell him the truth. No, Senor, no. Laura was not indifferent. It was women's way. It is women's way. Women are like that. They will forget quickly. That is what he meant. They will forget quickly. Even if it were women's way, the Silver Maiden was not of that disposition. My friend awaited news for days, months, a year, and no letter came. One afternoon, just at sunset, as the first stars were appearing, she was seen to leave the house, and with quickening steps went her way towards the beach. The beach where her beloved had risked his life. She wrote his name on the sand, then sat down upon a rock, her gaze fixed upon the horizon. The waves murmured their eternal threnody and slowly crept up to the rock where the maiden sat. The tide rose with a boom and swept her to sea. Good heavens, oh my God. Did this happen to Laura? Laura's version is that the Silver Maiden, what did she do after the duel? After the duel, the gallant young man left the place. She waited for him for a long time, for about months and years. She too believed that her love was lost. She came to a beach and sat over there, and the waves came and swept her into the sea. That is how she died. The fishermen of that shore, who often tell the story, affirm that it was a long time before the waves washed away the names written on the sand. Laura told to herself, you will not get ahead of me in decorating my own funeral. I'm decorating my own death. You can't overtake me. That means she is lying that all that really happened is a story, a cooked up story. Poor Laura, said Gonzalo. Poor Gonzalo, said Laura. But Gonzalo within himself knew she was also lying. She was also lying. I will not tell him that I married 2 years later. Laura got married. Gonzalo told himself. In 3 months, I ran off to Paris with a ballet dancer. A woman's way, he said. At least this woman waited for a year. But this man got married in 3 months. Fate is curious. Here are you and I, complete strangers met by chance, discussing the romance of the old friends so long ago. We have been conversing as if we were old friends. Yes, it is curious, considering the ill-natured prelude to our conversations, she said. It is curious, but the beginning of the conversation was not so nice. So, at this point of time, both realized their identities. Both were talking about themselves, but in the name of a cousin and her friend. They haven't revealed their identities yet, but they came to know what happened in the past. They both realized that they are lying to one another, but they are enjoying their conversation. What happens next? When they continue to converse, do they reveal their identities? Let us see that in our next episode.